Stephanie McLellan is currently the president of the Laurier Teachers Union. She is the youngest and first female elected as LTU Director of Membership Welfare. The Laurier Teachers Union is the third largest Anglophone local teachers union in Quebec, representing more than 1,000 teachers in schools and centres of the Sir Wilfrid Laurier School Board in Laval, the Laurentians, and Lanaudière. Stephanie advocates for labor rights, gender equality, and fair collective bargaining. She has been very successful in past rounds of local negotiation. She obtained her Bachelor of Arts specializing in translation in 2003 and returned to university for a Bachelor of Education. She taught high school French as a second language, English, and ERC. She has also completed the Workplace Mental Health Leadership Certificate Program at Queen's University. Stephanie was elected to the LTU Board of Directors as Director of Part-Time Teachers Without Full-Time Contracts in 2003 to 2004, while still a non-legally qualified, non-tenured replacement teacher. Once legally qualified, she held the position of Director of Laval High Schools from 2006 to 2010, until elected on full-time release for union duties in 2010. She is a long-serving member of the QPAT Board of Directors and a member at large of the QPAT Executive Committee. On top of all of that, she sits on over 20 committees, both locally and provincially, including the first provincial subcommittee for dispute prevention and resolution for the Anglophone education sector. So I want to begin with, if you can explain the area that LTU covers.
Yeah, so basically we cover a territory the size of Belgium, which is Laval, Laurentians, and Lanaudière. So it's a pretty vast territory. Could take a couple hours to drive from one end of the territory to the next. And it's all the Anglophone teachers in those three sectors. We have about 1,200 members.
1,200, okay, excellent. And can you explain a little bit what your journey has been to becoming the local union president?
Yeah, I know. I would assume most people would talk about how they always dreamed of doing what they are doing. My journey was really interesting. I did a first degree in translation. And when I graduated in 2003 from Concordia, I realized that I really loved studying it, but working in the field, I found it was a bit boring, to be honest. And I felt like I just had too much personality to be stuck, translating memos behind a screen. So I took a little break after I did my stage in the summer, just before I graduated. And a friend of mine was like, "What are you up to, Steph?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm not really feeling this translation thing." And they suggested that I could substitute teach while I was waiting, because there was a need for a high school in Laval. And I had been a student at the Sir Wilfrid Laurier School Board. So I went in for an interview, met the principal, and they offered me a teaching job. I loved it. Went back to university in 2005, did a year at McGill, then went to Ottawa U. I got accepted to the one-year program, and in 2006 finished with my B.Ed and became a teacher. And just about that time, I was working in Laval Senior High School with Sébastien Joly. And we were at a staff meeting party, and he came up to me and he's like, the board of directors of the union is looking for someone to fill the position of part-time members without full-time contracts. Actually, that probably started a little bit earlier in 2004, before I was even legally qualified. And he's like, "You have a big mouth and you can argue well, so I think you'd be a great asset." So I'm like, filled in the paperwork and got a claim to the position. And that's pretty much how it started. I spent a couple of years teaching from 2006 as a qualified teacher. So I was probably involved with the union since 2004, held a couple of director positions, elected onto the board of directors of LTU. And then in 2010 ran for the membership welfare position. And I've been in the union office ever since. And in 2016, I was elected as president.
So 2016, it's been almost 6 years, or 6 years already.
Almost 6 years. I did 6 years in membership, and I loved my job in membership. I mean, it was overwhelming and never had a minute to stop, but I loved it. I learned so much. And I'm lucky with the team that I have, because we're small. I get to still kind of dabble in membership and the technical things, and also do all the administrative and political stuff as president. But yeah, it's going to be almost 12 years that I'm in the union.
Unbelievable. And could you describe what a day in the life of the president of the LTU looks like?
Oh my Lord, how long do we have for this interview? It's odd. I've spent, a couple of years now in COVID and then pre-COVID. I'd say that I was probably just as busy. But I think before, I had that luxury because of this vast territory of being able to take a bit of downtime and travel time in between meetings and stuff. I mean, the day in the life of an LTU president, or probably anybody in my office, is we sit on 20 plus committees. I'm also a member of the QPAD executive and board of directors. So it's a lot of meetings, answering emails, answering questions, and intervening in, crisis situations a lot of the time. And that has been amplified in COVID. I used going to the office, traveling the territory, visiting schools. That used to also be part of my day-to-day, which has not been the case since COVID. So now I tend to work remotely behind a screen, back-to-back meetings, fit in a phone call whenever I can, and then do all my administrative work when I'm not doing one of those other things. So it's quite a rock and roll schedule, as we like to say in the office, but we definitely don't get bored, and definitely have a chance to dabble in a lot of different things. So I'm not doing the same thing day in and day out. There's probably 15, 20, 30, 40 different dossiers that we could be dabbling in a given week. But lots of meetings would be my number one description.
Absolutely. And could you share one thing that you wish more members knew about what the role of the union is? I probably have quite a long wish list, because I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there about what we do. And honestly, I had those same misconceptions before I came into the office. I think the most important part is that the union's there for you. Like, we're there to help. We're at the service of the membership, on top of, ensuring that the collective agreements are applied correctly and that teachers' rights are respected. We do so much more than that. And we're then basically paid by the members to advocate for them. Obviously, there's always like this difference between telling somebody what they would like to hear versus doing what you're capable of doing within your mandate. And sometimes that also, those lines get blurred, but we're here for the teachers, and we work really hard. We care about the teachers, and at any given moment, we can be teachers in the classroom again. So what all the actions we do and things that we put in place impact our friends, our loved ones, our colleagues, and ourselves. So I think, if they knew it, we're there for them. And the thing that I hear the most is, I'm so sorry for bothering you. I know you're busy. You pay me to answer your questions and take your calls and help you and give you advice. So if anything, it's better to give us a call and have a chat than sit there and trying to deal with something on your own. We're there to help. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. And so it's just to read, sometimes it's just to reiterate some information they already have, and maybe the answer will be like, no, that is what they told you was absolutely right. But it's important sometimes to take the time to get that second opinion. If you have a little bit of doubt, that's what
even for us in the office, we have that relationship with you guys at QPAT, right?
Yes.
I mean, people see us as the specialists. We don't know everything. We learn every day. Laws change, rules change, directives change. It's weekly sometimes, and we always have to kind of review what's going on. So, sometimes members call us and we give the best answer we can, but then there's always the aspect of we reach out to you guys and find out, how has the jurisprudence changed? How are the rules changed? Have there been new changes in the labor standards? And it's this ongoing system of change. There are certain things that remain static, but it's just learning all the time, finding new ways to advocate and finding new ways to implement rules to the teacher's advantage.
And so now, if you can share something that your members would be surprised to know about you, about Stephanie McLellan.
I think it's probably that I'm a foodie. I don't know if people actually ever have the chance to see me eat, because I don't always get a chance to take my lunch break, but I love food. It's funny because I don't cook. My husband cooked for me for 20 years. I don't really cook. I have food allergies, and I don't generally have the time, but I love to eat. So for me, one of the great pleasures is going out to a good restaurant and eating a great meal, be it French cuisine, which is on my top of my list. Everything, Caribbean, Mexican, Indian, all sorts of food. And I actually, when I travel, I choose my destination and my hotels based on the food and the restaurants.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because if I'm going, my first vacation ever was to Cuba when I was 20 years old. I had never seen the sea. I'd never been on a plane before I was 20 years old. And the food was really not that great. And I was like, I loved being here, but I went home like 15 pounds lighter, feeling really ill. And then after I learned, okay, no, the food is very important. So yeah, I'm a foodie.
And out of all the places you've traveled to, where did they have the best food?
Hands down, Thailand.
Really?
Oh, in 2019, I got to go to Thailand for the Educational World Congress with QPAT and the CTF. And I ended up spending a month there because it happened over the summer break. So we gave up some of our vacation time to attend conferences. And then my husband met me there, and we spent about 3.5 weeks traveling around. And the food everywhere we went, North Thailand in Chiang Mai, in Koh Samui, in Bangkok, there was just something to eat, all levels of prices, and everything was fabulous. Wow. My mouth waters thinking about it. And out of the 350 pictures I took, I'd say 200 of them were what I ate.
Well, I was going to say that time when you were in Thailand, that period of time, the pictures that would come, I was like, wow, you could have made a book with those pictures. They were amazing.
It's on the list to do one day. I have about 11,000 travel photos from my travel in the last, 15 years in my cloud. And eventually I'm going to do something with them.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. So given your and I know I see you go, you have an extremely busy schedule with all those meetings. What are some of the things that you do to take care of yourself?
So I'm going to say I didn't really understand the importance of taking care of myself before. I think even when I was a child, I just always took care of others. And like I was always told, you're strong, you're resilient, you're smart. And I never really felt the need to take care of myself. I always got a lot of pleasure taking care of everybody. And that even in the job I do now as a teacher, I was able to do that. As a union director or leader, I'm able to do that, right? The nature of what I do is taking care of others. And when COVID hit, it hit hard. Like it was a very difficult transition. There was so much crisis. I had never experienced such a level of crisis within the membership. And it really almost burnt me out. Like I would finish my days in tears some days. And after 12 hours on Zoom, I was meeting with the school board on weekends. It was unbelievable. So I really had to learn to slow down. So not overworking and setting limits for myself. When the day's done, the day's done. And that was one big thing. And with that came starting to practice yoga. And it's funny, I used to own a yoga studio prior to COVID, and I never really went into the studio. I loved the managing and the startup of it, but I never did the practice of it. And that is something that saved me throughout COVID. And I also started therapy just to, I found this really wonderful therapist who is able to just help reassure me that when I'm taking time for myself, that I shouldn't feel guilty for it. And to also help with this thing called The Matrix. And it's based on the movie The Matrix, where it's what are your values and keeping track of the actions that take me away from my values and then bring me back to them. And then the feelings associated with that, to try to just have this well-rounded management of where I am and where I want to be, and to not let things take me off that track. So those are 3 things that I find are really, really important to me, and has gotten me through this.
Oh, I'm very happy to hear that. And you look very well. So it's working. It's working.
Thank you.
And what would you say to members? Because now we were looking at it in the fall and we're like, okay, we're making our way out of this, but we're not at that stage yet. We're still in it. So what advice could you give to members to keep going during this time?
I think it's really that you're only capable of so much. And, I'm a perfectionist, and I think most of our teachers are perfectionists, and they really just want to do well to the utmost of their ability all the time. But especially in these last 2 years, the conditions do not allow us to be able to do everything the way we used to do them or the way we knew how to do them best. So being able to adapt and understand that aspect of perfection is not something that's realistically attainable, especially not all the time. And I'm sure it carries over in their family lives, trying to be perfect parents, trying to be perfect spouses, trying to be perfect daughters and sons. And I wanted to share with you this wisdom of Kintsukuroi. And it's something that really touched me. A good friend of mine bought me this book of inspirational quotes, 365 inspirational quotes. And this is one that touched me the most. And it was January 2nd's quote. And basically what it is it's this practice of a Japanese ceramic style. And every time the ceramic breaks, the artist will then repair it with gold or gold dusted lacquer. And really what it signifies is putting things back together using this gold to show, not hide the defects, but to use them to show how it makes it more beautiful. And it really embraces the flaws and imperfections. And it also teaches the essence of resilience. And every crack in that piece is part of its history. And each piece makes it become more beautiful. Even though some people might think it's broken, it contributes to its beauty. So there's this one little saying that comes in it, and I'll read it to you because I didn't memorize this part. And it says, you will fail, you will break. You will stand up and dust yourself off. You will repair yourself again and again. And eventually, though you will be different than before, you will again become whole. You will be even more beautiful precisely because of all this. You will be a better person because of your imperfections, not in spite of them. And it's something that really touches me. And I constantly remind myself of that. And for some reason, this January 2nd quote in this book and this wisdom of Kintsukuroi really changed my perspective on things. And I try to remember this every time I'm getting down on myself about not doing everything, and it's not always the best. So I think it's something, especially coming out of this pandemic and knowing the long road ahead of us, of repairing all the damage that's been caused to teachers, to students, to education, to everybody's psychological well-being. It's going to be really important to remember those things. So that's what I would like to share.
That's beautiful, to build something new and even more beautiful. And Stephanie, I have to say, when I look at you, you're full of gold and you're beautiful. So thank you. And thank you for everything you do for your members.
Oh, thank you, Julie. You're my biggest fan. I love it. But again, it takes a village, right? And it's with all of your support that we're able to have some success. So thank you so much for having me for this interview.
Thank you.